Hi everybody, and welcome to the Face Reading Secrets of the People in the News. I would like to remind you, if you're interested in the subject of face reading, you can watch on YouTube my Introduction to Face Reading and Face Reading 101 Part 1, Part 2. And also please click subscribe if you want to receive notifications every time I post a new video or an audio. This week I will speak about a person America called O.J. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, O.J. Simpson. Usually, in the beginning, I do the reading of a person's face, and then personality, meaning personality, and then profile, the temperament. But today, I will start with Simpson's temperament, the qualities he arrived into this world with. Here he is in 1994, when the infamous event happened, when he was 47, and also today, 22 years later. As you can see, at 47 he was pretty much a pure sanguine. Remember from Face Reading 101, as a sanguine, he was courageous, short-tempered, would get easily bored, have short attention span, is very physical, active, muscle-coordinated, loves sports and competition, surprise, territorial, guards his space and property, generous, showers you with love if you are in his favor, and ready to kill you if you cross him. He was a good communicator and fun to be with. But as you look at OJ's picture some 20 years later, you see he gained weight, still a sanguine, but also acquired some lymphatic qualities. So he became more patient, slower pace, more of a person who takes scene rather than all out there. But now let's look at Simpson's personality, what he morphed into by the age of 47. But I have a little story to tell you. In 1990, that is 4 or almost 5 years before the event, my instructor then, Gerald Epstein, when introducing Saturn over Mars phase, said, you know the football player O.J. Simpson, his face is Saturn over Mars. Saturn over Mars is a face of a person with a murderous impulse. Here you see the typical lines on his forehead, picture 1, the rectangular face, picture 2, red lines, and at the same time the reverse trapezoid, blue lines, that is Saturn. It does not mean that every Saturn over Mars is a murderer, but the impulse is there. People can transform the impulse for destruction into an impulse for construction. That is why we have free will. Let me give you an example. Here next to O.J. is a man with the same Saturn over Mars face. It's Anthony Robbins. Maybe you know or heard about him. A wonderful motivational speaker, a teacher, a known author, and a success coach. A man who has been doing so much good for people around the world. In fact, 30 years ago, I went on one of his seminars and I did a firewalk experience with him. Here they are, the same lines on the forehead, the same rectangular face, and over it is a reverse trapezoid. The only difference, as you can see, OJ's forehead, picture 2, is kind of roundish and Anthony's is straight, meaning that OJ was able to be mentally detached. Otherwise, everything is the same, Saturn over Mars. Mars gives the personality spontaneity, aggressiveness, impatience, and a short attention span. And the Saturn adds willfulness, planning, deliberation, and the ability to calculate. The combination at times becomes lethal. But you heard me saying in other readings that beyond personality and even our innate impulses of the temperament is free will and moral choices that we all make. Anthony Robbins is still a guy with a fighting spirit. Not by a chance that he likes martial arts, but he chose to fight. Fight poverty, insecurity, apathy, hopelessness, helplessness. fight all this in himself and then in others. And you see the results. And the other guy, well, they said he didn't do it. Talking about these guys actually reminded me of another story. Let me tell you this story. Actually, it's a Midrash. Midrash is a commentary on the Bible, believed to be channeled from above. So the Midrash tells a story of a king. Well, those days, any leader of a tribe was called a king. Anyway, the king heard about a great leader, Moses, who was guiding his people, the Hebrew people, through the desert. He heard that Moses was an incredibly powerful, but also very modest and smart and gentle and welcoming and kind host. The king wanted to see for himself if that was true, so he sent his best painter to the camp of the Hebrew. After a while, the painter brought the portrait of Moses. Moses did not look like the king expected, so the king summoned his best physiognomist, the face reader, and asked him to read the face of the man on the portrait. After looking at the portrait, the physiognomist said that it was the face of a man who could be impatient, unwelcoming, arrogant, violent, and tyrannical. This was totally contradicting all that the king heard about Moses. So he sent for another physiognomist. The physiognomist looked at the portrait and said, "My master, I see the man who is impatient, unwelcoming, arrogant, violent, and tyrannical." The king was quite confused. The king decided to make a trip and meet Moses so he could see the truth for himself. So he got on his personal jet. Just kidding, no, of course. He took the camels and with his whole court he went into the desert. Moses welcomed the king. He invited the king into his tent. Something like this. Moses was the most gracious, humble, kind, accommodating, fun to be with person. The king was truly enjoying his new acquaintance. Finally, the king said to Moses, "I cannot believe it. I cannot believe how wrong were my physiognomists. I see you look exactly like on the portrait, but they told me by looking at the portrait that you were impatient, unwelcoming, arrogant, violent, and tyrannical, the opposite of what I experience you to be. How could they be so wrong?" And Moses said they were absolutely right. What the painters captured and in the portrait and what the physiognomists interpreted was what I came into this world with, my tendencies. But I worked on myself, on my character, and transformed every one of those qualities. That's the story I wanted to tell you. And it's thousands of years old. Then already they knew the art of face reading, and they knew that the goal of our life is not to follow our worst impulses, but to become the best of what we can be. And that is all for today. Thanks for listening. Talk to you next week.